The scene shows a man running alone across the vast, icy expanse of prehistoric North America 90,000 years ago. The steam from his breath forms small clouds in the biting dawn air, while his bare feet, calloused from countless journeys, know every stone on the path as if they were old friends. His hardened soles feel the texture of every type of terrain, the damp moss of the forests, the sharp stones of the mountains, the slippery mud of the valleys. His lungs burn in the crisp air, each exhalation a battle against the bone-chilling cold, but he doesn't stop. He can't stop. In his calloused hands, protected by strips of animal hide, he carries something more precious than gold, more valuable than his own life, a perfectly sculpted red flint blade, its edges so sharp they could cut through raw hide with the ease of a modern knife-slicing paper. This blade has traveled hundreds of miles from the quarries of what we now know as Ohio, crossing treacherous valleys and snow-capped mountains to reach tribes in the present-day lands of Illinois. He is not just a hunter with muscles defined by chasing mammoths and caribou. He's a messenger, a primitive merchant, a vital link between worlds separated by mountains that touch the clouds and rivers that roar like wild beasts. But wait, did our Paleolithic ancestors really have something similar to a postal system? Were there delivery men in the Stone Age, connecting distant tribes through complex exchange networks that rival our modern systems? Modern archaeology reveals a surprising truth that challenges our assumptions about the simplicity of prehistoric life. Long before the invention of the wheel, tens of millennia before the first cities raised their stone walls, our ancestors had already created humanity's first global trade networks. These networks stretched across entire continents, connecting cultures that spoke completely different languages, followed distinct traditions, but shared a universal need: access to materials that did not exist in their native territories. It was a world without political borders, without customs, without bureaucracy, just the fundamental human need to exchange, connect, and survive. In 1991, on the treacherous glaciers of the Rocky Mountains, the world met Ötzi, the Iceman, a 5,300-year-old hunter perfectly preserved as if he had died yesterday. His body, naturally mummified by the extreme cold, offered us a unique window into the past. But what most impressed archaeologists was not just his miraculous state of preservation, it was his travel kit, a detailed inventory that revealed the impressive extent of Neolithic trade networks. The blade of his dagger had been forged with ores extracted from the sunny hills of Nevada, hundreds of miles from where he died. His arrowheads were made of flint, from the Great Lakes region, a specific material with unique properties that only that area could provide. The handle of his axe contained copper extracted from mines located hundreds of miles away, each gram of this precious metal representing weeks of arduous work in dark, dangerous tunnels. Even the fibers of his equipment revealed diverse origins. Some threads made from plant materials that grew only in specific climates, very different from the alpine environment where he met his end. Ötzi was a walking catalogue of materials that crossed entire continents. Every item in his possession told a story of epic journeys, of hands that passed these objects across vast distances, of specialized knowledge shared between cultures that might never have met face to face. But Ötzi is not an isolated exception in archaeological history. In Arctic Canada, where winters are brutal enough to kill in minutes, archaeologists discovered a 34,000-year-old burial with elaborate necklaces made from Arctic fox teeth, animals that lived more than 300 miles away across hostile territories populated by predators and potentially hostile tribes. In Texas, where the Gulf Coast meets arid landscapes, perforated seashells were found for making necklaces 12 miles from the nearest ocean, a distance that may seem insignificant today, but which represented a full day's journey across unknown territory for our ancestors. Each of these shells had been carefully selected, perforated with primitive tools, polished until they shone like modern jewels. At archaeological sites in Australia, we find stone axes made with materials from specific quarries located more than 300 miles away, each representing an epic journey across relentless deserts and dense forests. The question becomes inevitable, almost haunting in its implication. How did these objects travel such impressive distances in an era without domesticated horses, without the revolutionary invention of the wheel, without maps drawn on paper or hide, without compasses for orientation? How did our ancestors manage to create logistical networks that work better than many modern systems? The answer lies in the people themselves. They were the transportation system. Their bodies were the vehicles. Their minds were the navigation computers. Their determination was the fuel that kept the entire system running. Close your eyes and visualize this scene. A 25-year-old man, muscles defined not by modern gyms, but by the daily hunting of animals weighing tons, lungs expanded not by programmed exercises, but by outdoor life at altitudes that challenge breathing. He doesn't run for sport, hobby, or physical exercise. He runs for social survival, for the continuity of his tribe, for the future of his children. On his back, a tanned leather pouch crafted with techniques passed down from generation to generation carries superior quality flint. Each stone tested, approved, known for its ability to maintain a sharp edge for months. Rare shells that shimmer with colors that don't exist in his homeland. Ochre pigments for ritual paintings that connect the physical to the spiritual world. And perhaps, most valuable of all, information about animal migrations, climate changes, the location of new water sources, conflicts between distant tribes, births of leaders, deaths of shamans. Biomechanical studies reveal that our Paleolithic ancestors possessed extraordinary physical capabilities that make modern Olympic athletes seem like amateurs. Detailed analyses of 40,000-year-old Homo sapiens bones show bone density and muscle markings comparable to elite modern-day marathon runners. But while our modern athletes train on carefully prepared tracks, with nutritionists and physical therapists, these men developed their bodies in environments that tried to kill them daily. They were biological machines optimized not just for endurance, but for survival. Their hearts pumped blood more efficiently, their muscles processed oxygen more effectively, their reflexes were sharpened by the constant need to avoid predators and navigate treacherous terrain. But they didn't run blindly through the world like panicked animals. Archaeological evidence suggests that established routes existed, ancient paths that connected raw material sources to population centers, like a prehistoric version of the Silk Road trade routes. In the American Southwest, the famous Flint Route linked the quarries of New Mexico to tribes scattered over more than 300 miles, crossing rivers, mountains, and valleys that changed with the seasons. These routes were not created overnight. They evolved over generations, each traveler adding their knowledge, marking dangers, identifying landmarks, creating an information network that stretched across entire continents. These men knew the territory like no modern GPS could map it. They knew where to find fresh water during dry seasons, natural shelters that would protect them from deadly storms, which rivers could be crossed in each season without risk of drowning, where predators tended to hunt, which plants were edible and which were poisonous. They were walking libraries of geographical knowledge, each mind containing information that today would require dozens of books to document. Their brains stored three-dimensional maps of vast territories, complete with notes on seasonal dangers, available resources, and even information about the temperament of specific tribes they might encounter along the way. But these Paleolithic delivery men didn't just transport physical objects across continents. They carried something even more valuable, more crucial to the survival of the human species: pure, unfiltered, vital information. Imagine the dramatic moment when a runner finally arrives at a distant tribe after weeks of travel. He is not just a merchant with goods to trade, but a living, breathing newspaper. a walking encyclopedia of current events. He brings fresh news about the movement of mammoth herds, information that could mean the difference between abundance and famine for the entire tribe. He reports climate changes in distant regions, signs that a harsh winter is coming or that an exceptionally hot summer might dry up essential water sources. He describes the discovery of new caves with paintings, sacred sites that connect tribes through shared symbolism. He tells of conflicts between neighboring tribes, alliances that have been formed, betrayals that have been discovered, births of future leaders, deaths of shamans whose knowledge needs to be preserved, technical innovations that can revolutionize the way tools are made. In the caves of France, where the walls breathe prehistoric art, we find paintings of animals that did not exist in the region. Woolly rhinoceroses, reindeer, species that lived hundreds of miles away. This suggests that Paleolithic artists had detailed knowledge of distant fauna, knowledge that likely reached them through these itinerant messengers. Each painting was not just art, but documentation, a way of preserving information about the world beyond the visible horizon. They were the Stone Age Facebook, but a Facebook where each post cost weeks of risky life, where each like meant survival for entire families. Exchanges were not purely economic. They were diplomatic, strategic, vital for peace. A valuable gift to a distant tribe was not just simple trade. It was a peace treaty signed with blood and sweat, a request for an alliance that could last generations, a guarantee of hospitality should they need to migrate through that territory during a devastating drought or a particularly brutal winter. Each object exchanged carried complex political meanings, coded messages about intentions, promises about future behavior. Modern genetic studies reveal that, even separated by hundreds of miles of hostile territory, Paleolithic tribes maintained constant genetic flow, clear evidence that intertribal marriages existed regularly. Someone needed to make these delicate initial contacts. Someone needed to deliver marriage proposals, negotiate dowries, arrange meetings between young people from tribes that might traditionally be enemies. These messengers were not just merchants. They were diplomats, mediators, peacekeepers, in a world where a misunderstanding could mean total war, running alone through wild territories, carrying valuable objects that could sustain an entire family for months, was practically a death sentence for most people. Predators lurked in every shadow: saber-toothed cats with dagger-like fangs, bears that weighed half a ton, wolves that hunted in coordinated packs. The weather could change in minutes, transforming a simple journey into a fight for survival against hailstorms, blinding blizzards, heat that parched the throat in hours. So why did some specific individuals take on these seemingly suicidal risks? The answer is rooted in complex evolutionary psychology. These men were not just brave. They were sophisticated social strategists operating in a chess game of survival. In small societies where everyone knew everyone, where reputations were built over entire lifetimes, being known as the man who brought the quality flint or the one who knows the northern tribes guaranteed elevated social status that translated into tangible benefits, better positions in hunts, a stronger voice in tribal decisions, respect from elders, admiration from the young. Most importantly, it guaranteed superior reproductive opportunities. Anthropological evidence suggests that men with extensive social networks, who demonstrated personal courage and the ability to provide rare resources, had a greater chance of finding desirable partners and ensuring that their genes were passed on to the next generation. In a world where survival depended on group cooperation, being known as someone connected to the outside world was a golden ticket to reproductive success. It was natural selection in action, pure and simple. The genes of these Paleolithic delivery men spread through populations because the courage to travel, the intelligence to navigate, the strength to survive were evolutionarily rewarded traits. Each successful journey not only brought resources to the tribe, it increased the chances that the travelers' genes would continue to exist for thousands of years into the future. Imagine the pure emotional tension of these journeys. Entire days alone in the wild, where every sound could mean mortal danger, carrying the responsibility for the well-being of his tribe, knowing that other families depended entirely on the materials he would bring back. The constant fear of predators that could tear him to shreds in seconds, of storms that could freeze him to death, of getting lost in unknown territories where his bones would never be found. But also the electrifying adrenaline of discovering new territories, the pride of being welcomed as a hero upon returning, the satisfaction of seeing tools being made with the materials he risked his life to obtain. Around 30,000 years ago, something extraordinary and revolutionary happened in human history. Paleolithic exchange networks were no longer local, regional, or even continental. They were transcontinental, connecting cultures separated by entire oceans, creating the first globalized system in human history. Amber from the Baltic Sea, formed from tree resin that had not existed for millions of years, was found in archaeological sites in Ukraine, thousands of miles from its origin. Volcanic obsidian from Turkey, with cutting properties superior to any metal of the time, appeared in excavations in Syria, having crossed deserts and mountains. Seashells from the Indian Ocean, each unique in its iridescent beauty, reached the mountains of Afghanistan, ascending thousands of feet in altitude through treacherous passes. The Paleolithic world was connected in ways that challenge our modern understanding of prehistoric communication and logistics. But how does a trade network function without money, without a writing system to record contracts, without formal laws to ensure agreement compliance? The answer lies in the sophisticated economy of reciprocity based on mutual trust. Each tribe specialized in what it possessed best. One controlled an exceptional flint mine with unique properties. Another mastered the production of rare pigments needed for religious ceremonies. A third had privileged access to seashells impossible to find elsewhere. A fourth knew where to find medicinal plants that cured specific diseases. No one needed to run thousands of miles in a single suicidal journey. Objects jumped from tribe to tribe, like a gigantic relay race that stretched across entire continents. A runner would take French flint to Germany. There, another would pick up the flint and continue to Poland, also carrying Baltic amber back in the opposite direction. In Poland, a third would collect both materials and head for Ukraine, perhaps also carrying Arctic animal furs obtained through previous exchanges. It was a self-sustaining system based on mutual trust and shared need, a miracle of human cooperation that functioned without central supervision, without bureaucracy, without formal legal enforcement. Not everyone made it home alive. The statistics were brutal, the chances of death were high, and every journey was a gamble with one's own life. Isolated skeletons found in remote regions of North America, far from any known settlement, tell silent stories of men who died during these heroic journeys. Some show clear signs of predator attacks, tooth marks on bones, signs that they were hunted and killed by saber-toothed cats or gigantic bears. Others exhibit fractures characteristic of falls from cliffs, of desperate attempts to climb impossible mountains or cross deadly ravines. Many simply disappeared completely, their bones lost forever in the depths of ancient forests or at the bottom of old rivers that changed course over millennia. In Cahokia Mounds, Illinois, archaeologists discovered the skeleton of a 30-year-old man, buried with special honors and objects of distant origin. Siberian wolf teeth that traveled thousands of miles across the frozen tundra, Black Sea shells that journeyed across endless steppes, Carpathian flint extracted from dangerous mines at extreme altitudes. He died far from home, far from his family, but was buried with honors that suggest dying in service of the community was considered heroic, noble, worthy of eternal remembrance. These men were humanity's first astronauts, explorers who risked everything to expand the horizons of our species, who pushed the boundaries of the known world until it became truly global. Imagine the pure emotional farewell before each journey. The family gathering, everyone knowing it might be the last time they would see that face, hear that voice. The children running after their father to the edge of the village, their small bare feet trying to keep up with strides that would soon take him beyond the horizon. The wife handing over protective amulets made with her own hair, whispering prayers to primitive gods who might hear her desperate pleas. The elders sharing precious knowledge about the dangers of the path, where to find water when rivers dried up, how to recognize the footprints of specific predators, which stars to follow when clouds covered the moon. It was emotional in ways our modern minds can barely comprehend. It was brutal beyond our contemporary imagination, and it was absolutely necessary for the survival of our species. Today, when we click buy on our smartphones and receive a product within 24 hours through automated logistical networks, we rarely think about the 40,000 years of human evolution that made this possible. But the next time a delivery driver rings your doorbell, wearing a corporate uniform and driving a GPS-equipped vehicle, remember, he is the direct descendant of those Paleolithic runners who crossed entire continents with precious objects in their calloused hands, who risked their lives so that distant cultures remained connected. The fundamental difference is that our ancestors didn't do this for a salary, for corporate benefits, or for career advancement. They did it for pure survival, for social status, for the love of their own tribe, for the evolutionary need to keep our species connected and prosperous. Every step was a conscious gamble on the continuity of the human species. Every journey, a declaration of faith that other human beings would honor their sacrifices. The networks they created didn't just transport flint, shells, amber, and obsidian. They transported genes that ensured genetic diversity, ideas that drove technological innovation, technologies that improved quality of life, languages that enriched communication, religions that provided spiritual meaning, art that expressed the human soul. They built the first invisible highways of human culture, roads made not of stone and asphalt, but of courage, determination, and mutual trust. And perhaps most impressively of all, they did it all, depending only on their own extraordinary physical endurance, geographical memory developed over generations, and the given word, the sacred commitment between human beings. Without legal contracts, without written guarantees, without life insurance, without backup systems, just on the primitive, fundamental trust that other human beings would honor agreements, treat strangers with hospitality, keep promises even when it cost precious resources. When we observe modern logistical crises, delivery problems that paralyze entire economies, the impressive complexity of current transportation systems that depend on technology, fuel, infrastructure, and governmental regulation, a disturbing question remains. Have we lost something essential along the way? That fundamental capacity to trust, to take risks for the community, to transform our own bodies into a tool of connection between distant worlds. Cavemen didn't have WhatsApp, GPS, or instant social media, but they possessed something we may have forgotten in our rush towards modernity: the absolute courage to travel any distance, face any danger, take any risk to keep humanity connected, prosperous, and unified. If this story made you rethink what express delivery truly means, and how our commercial instincts are older and deeper than we ever imagined, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because the history of humanity is full of forgotten heroes who deserve to be remembered and celebrated, and they ran much greater distances, faced far more real dangers than any modern delivery driver to ensure we got here, that our species survived and thrived through millennia of unimaginable challenges.